why do you think?
You breaking up.
Why do you? Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, you.
Mr. John,
I did use capital.
why do you think Y of N, little y of N, is the same thing as big Y of N? And I'm asking you, why do you think they're the same thing? They're not the same thing, and you do it all over your assignment. If I name some little y of n, then how can you come back and name it big Y of n? Now, if you're talking about piece spice, it won't matter, but it matters in octave.
Yes, sir. Dr. Cartwright.
Yes.
I ain't gonna do that no more. Please excuse this assignment.
You know, man, this sounds already graded.
All right.
Dr. Godray.
Yes.
If I have a question about the midterm, do I wait after class or I have to wait on your office hour?
What midterm?
The past midterm that you sent us.
I'm not going over that.
I was asking. There's only one thing I didn't understand.
Well, it's almost 10 o'clock. So I can't do it now because I'll take up class time.
Yeah, that's why I was asking them. When would be the best time?
Here it is, 10 o'clock, and who's here? Why is Mr. Anderson trying to get in twice? Okay. All right. I've graded the assignment you just turned in. And 3/4 of a class can't find A3. The very last question, 3/4 of the class can't find it. And the people who need to hear it ain't here. So that's where we begin today. How do we find A3? This is what we did on the 11th of September. Just difference equations. The coefficient of y is A0. The coefficient delayed y by 1 is A1. The coefficient of delay by 2 y is A2. The coefficient of delay by 3 y is A3. Many of you told me that A3 is 0. Why is that? Because you don't read your notes. No, true, A3, I just wrote that in this morning. That's why it's in red. But look at the pattern. A0, A1, A2. So clearly, in that assignment, that homework assignment, okay, A1 was 0 and A2 was 0. And A3 was G over 10, so negative G over 10. Any questions about that? Okay. Ms. Pinto, I just explained how to get A3. I suggest you contact your classmates after class and find out how to get A3 because you're going to need to know how to do that.
Yes, sir.
Again, class begins at 10 o'clock. Class does not begin at 4 after 10. We want to continue. We want to continue the example we began last class. The example we began last class, example 414. We were given the impulse response. We were given the input signal. The 2 green arrows. Okay. From the difference equation, from the impulse response, we're able to find a difference equation. Okay. And from the difference equation, we can find the A. And then from the A vector, the B vector, and the input X, we can find the output Y numerically. Octave will give us the numerical values. That's what we did last class. Any questions about that? Today, so all of this, that's parts 1 to 4 in your take-home test. Parts 1 to 4. And for example 1.4, I am not going to give you the program because I want you to write the program. I'm going to give you the results. And there's, if you recall from last class, there's the input at the top, 3, 2, 1, the 3 impulses.
I
Height 3,
see
2.
your octave screen.
Okay, sorry. Give me a second. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, the top graph is the input. What we did last class. The bottom graph is the output, Y of N. Y of N is the output. We get that from the filter command. but today we're going to get it a different way. The filter command requires that you know the A vector and the B vector, and the A vector and the B vector you get from the difference equation. I don't want to go that way. I want to get it just from the impulse response and the input. The impulse response and the input. So please take a snip of the output screen so we can compare it later. Okay. Now let's go.
I couldn't take a picture.
Why not?
Phone was slow. I just opened up my phone to get to the camera.
Oh, so you didn't think you have to take any pictures today?
The phone is automatically locked after a couple of seconds. Some people have their settings different.
Well, I suggest you have your settings different as well.
Yes,
I don't know why you come to class unprepared. All right. Here's a reminder of what we did last class. There's the top. The top is our input signal. There's the bottom. The bottom is our impulse response. Oh, let me mention something else. At least a quarter of you don't know when I ask for the impulse response that the input has to be impulse. At least a quarter of you don't know that. This impulse response, what creates this impulse response? Any impulse response, an impulse creates it. Not the input you see up top here. That input up here does not create this impulse response. A single impulse at time t equals 0, one high, creates this impulse response. That's what we mean by impulse response. All right. So each of these three impulses on the input is going to create an impulse response. This first one is going to create the same impulse, except what's going to be different. Let me ask the question again. This first impulse of the input is going to create the same thing. The same impulse response, except what? What's going to be different? Mr. Buchamp, surely you can answer this question.
Everything else would be zero going across to the right.
So how is that different from what we have now?
It's different because add 1, then it's coming down -1. And at 2, it's going up to 2.
And what created the impulse response at the bottom? What created that? What created the bottom graph?
That impulse in the input, 0 at n equals 0.
I know what you mean, Dr. Goddard. You mean it like the function? These zeros.
No.
You know when we say what we
I mean, what input created what?
God, are you breaking up a bit?
My other provider will work better. Give me a second. Okay, hang on. I'm going to change over now. Okay, are you all with me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me ask again. What created this bottom graph?
Did an impulse create the bottom line?
An impulse. Yes? And when is this impulse applied? At what end value is this impulse applied?
Is it at n equals 1?
No. So you can get an output. You can get an output before you get an input, before the input is showed up.
That's at n equals 0.
At n equals 0. And how high? And how high? And how high is that impulse at n equals 0?
3.
No. 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 That's exactly the point. You are not distinguishing between the present input and the input that actually created the impulse response. How high is the impulse that creates the impulse response? How high is that?
1.
1. 1 high applied at n equals 0. Now, What will this first impulse create?
That would be 3i.
It'll be the same thing, but three times bigger. So the output, because of that first impulse, it's the same thing, except it's 3 times bigger. What's the output because of the second impulse?
It'll be the same thing, but 2 times bigger.
No, it won't be the same thing.
It'll be delayed by 1.
It'd be delayed by 1. It'd be delayed by 1 and 2 times bigger. And what would the output be? For the third impulse?
It'll be the exact same thing, but delayed by 2.
Yes. And what will the total output be? The total output would be response because of the first impulse, plus the response of the second input, and the response of the third input. And let's go over the page and see that. See there? Again, this is in your book. So we've split the input into its three impulses. That's the first impulse, the second impulse, the third impulse. And the total input is the sum of those 3. So the first impulse, what happens to the first impulse? The first impulse of the input gives rise to the impulse response times 3. That's what you see on the right is the output because of the first impulse. Notice I'm saying the first impulse. How tall is the first impulse? It's x of 0 tall. It's x of 0 tall. So how tall will the output be? X of 0. What will the output be? X of 0 times the impulse response. That's the equation of this graph. Everybody follow that? Young man, speak slowly, speak up. Young man, why don't you know what I said?
What page you say this was, Dr. Goddard?
Page 130. Let me try this once more. And please listen carefully. Stop looking at everything else around you. Just concentrate on the screen. This first impulse causes what to be on the output? Who was that just now I was talking to? Mr. Higgs. When the impulse response is on the output, what's on the input? No, Mr. Higgs. I don't know why this is difficult to concept. If you have an impulse on the input, if you have an impulse on the input at n equals 0, 1 high, then the output would be the impulse response. You only get the impulse response from a single impulse on the input, a single one at n equals 0, 1 high. But in our input, we don't have a single input, a single impulse, 1 high. We have a single impulse, 3 high. So what will the output be? Mrs. Higgs, what would the output be? The input is 3 high. What will the output be? Excuse me? Miss Higgs, we can't go on if you don't get this. Please pay attention to the screen. If this is my input, what's my output, What's my output, Mr.
Oh, you could bring the paper down a little bit.
If that's my input, what's my output, Mr. Higgs? The what? Mr. Higgs, have you been studying at all? Or have your partner been doing all your work for you? Mr. Higgs, right now, what's the input? It's what? What's the equation of his input? X of n equals what? You don't have a clue. Anybody, what's the equation for this input?
Plus x of n equal delta of n.
Thank you very much. Mr. Higgs, the input is an impulse. If you have an impulse on the input, what do you have on the output, Mr. Higgs? Young man, you might as well drop this course. Excuse me? It ain't a good day? This got nothing to do with it today. This got to do way back to 320.
Dr. Godre, I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
You see where the line going down? If the dot in the line was at 1, would it be n minus 1, right? For the output, for the input.
You all asked me questions that we covered weeks ago.
No, I just asking. Is my
Yes, you asked me a question that we covered weeks ago.
Yeah,
How am I to make progress in this class if I keep repeating lessons?
I just trying to confirm it, you see.
And I can't just keep on confirming. because I'll get no progress done.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Higgs, if the input is the impulse, the output is h of n. The output is the impulse response. And in that case, that's this. That's 1, -1, 2. That's the impulse response. But that's not what we have. By the way, what's the name of this? What's the name of this height? What's the name of that height? No, the function is x of n.
You asking Mr. Higgs or?
Say again, Mr. Buchan?
I was asking who's asking Mr. Higgs or?
I was asking anybody.
You say what's the name of that height and you name it x of 0?
I didn't name x of 0 yet. But since this is x of n, this is x of 0. That's x of 0. So what's the output? The output is x of 0 times h of n. Because this height here creates h of n. So we don't have on our input signal, this is 3 high. That's 3 high. So all these gotta be multiplied by 3. All those gotta be multiplied by 3. So the output, because our first input, the output is x of 0 times h of n. All right. Any questions about that? All right, now, but there's 3. This becomes 3 here. For this graph, if we're going to be consistent without the 3, without the 3 here. If this is 1, then that's delta 1. Okay. Now, the second impulse on the input is too high. 0, 1, 2. So what happens on the output? Anybody, what happens on the output?
It's 2 times greater than h of n, but it's delayed by 1.
Thank you very much. The impulse is delayed by 1, so h of n will be delayed by 1. And it's going to be 2 times higher. It's going to be 2 times higher, so it's 2. It's 2, -2, and then it's 4. Okay. And this would be 0, 1, 2, 3. And this function would be x of 1. This is x of 1 now. That's x of 1 high, x of 1 times h of n minus 1. Any questions about this?
Isn't that supposed to be a positive 4?
Excuse me?
You see that n equals 0 and the height's supposed to be positive 4. I see you wrote -4 without.
No. That's a point on the axis.
Oh, okay.
And then the last input is what? Is this lot, and that's what? That's one high. Well, this is x of 2. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2. Okay, and what are we gonna get? Somebody other than Miss Beach out. What do we get on the output?
Could you bring the paper up an inch? Okay, so it'll be, so at 2, at n equals 2, it'll be 1 high, and then you would have at n equals 3, it'll go down to -1, and then at n equals 3, it would be at 2. It'd be 2 high.
All right, Mr. Joseph, Mr. Johnson. You didn't answer my question. You give me the numerical values, but you're not telling me what those numerical values are representing. What do we have on the input? Mr. Johnson, what do we have on the input?
I see 2 different impulses.
This input, what do we have on that input?
Are you referring to the x of 2?
I'm referring to the graph. What does the graph tell us in English what we have? If you were to explain to a blind man the function we have on that input, what would you say?
X of n equals delta n minus 1 plus delta plus delta n minus 2.
You don't have a clue either, do you? How many impulses do you see? How many impulses do you have? Excuse me?
I see 2 impulses.
Really? Really? Where are they? Really?
3. Sorry,
It's not 3. I don't know why you found bottom, Mr. Anderson. That bottom input, how many impulses do you see?
1.
Yes, 1.
Wait, Godric, why is
Yes.
it 1?
Why didn't you ask me that question for the middle one? Why didn't you ask me that question for the top one? Are you not paying attention either?
No, I trying to follow.
No, you're not trying to follow because I explained all this at the very beginning. At the very beginning, I said we are separating the input into separate impulses. I said that from the very beginning.
Okay.
This is the first impulse, this is the second impulse, and this is the third impulse.
Oh, all right. I understand. I actually thought you was talking about this one over here on the next.
I don't know what the hell I don't know what you mean with this one. This one where?
The graph.
Which graph?
The second graph on the right.
What is that second graph on the right, Miss Anderson? Miss Adley?
Thus x of h.
No, what is it? What is it a graph of?
That's the impulse response, right?
That's the impulse response due to what impulse?
Due to impulse, this graph over here. This the
I
result.
don't know what you mean by this graph over here, Mr. Adley.
The second one on the left.
Yes. This first graph creates the graph on the right. This second graph creates the graph on the right. This
Hey.
third graph creates what? What does this third graph create?
The third graph can create the graph on the right here again. It's the same pattern. It look like the impulse just shifting when you get the result. Because
Well, tell me what it's going to be, Mr. Adley. Stop bullshitting and tell me what it's going to be.
all right. I seen the impulse shift, so I would assume for the where there would be a 2, there will be impulse of the 2 going up the where would this be? Going up to 2, the positive 2, and then for 3, the impulse will be going down to going down to 1, and then for 4, the impulse will be going back up to would it be I believe 2 again. It'll be better if I could draw it,
No, you
If
could
I
tell me what do you have at equal 0? You tell me and I'll draw it. At n equals 0, what do you have?
At n equals 0.
Yes.
Okay. You don't have anything at n equals 0. At n equal 1, you don't have anything, but at n equal 2, you would have impulse going upwards.
Going up, it's how high?
It'd be too high.
No, where you get 2 from?
1.
Why are you guessing?
I looking at this graph on the next side.
I don't know what that means.
I looking at the graph on the left.
The graph on the left. Yes, and it says what?
It said the impulse going up the 1 high. So would it be 1 high?
1 high, because h of n is 1 high here.
Right.
And what happens at 3? What happens at 3?
The impulse would be going downwards. So it would be going to
Excuse me? Why?
no, I won't no. I don't think it will remain at 0. I think it'll go down.
Go down to what, Mr. Adley?
Would it be -2? Go down to -2?
Now, why are you saying -2? I don't understand this. Why are you saying -2?
I know it's supposed to be shifting downwards, but
I know you know that, but you don't know how far shifted downwards. And I'm asking you, you don't. That's telling me you really don't understand the 2 top graphs. That's what that's telling me.
no, I understand it a bit. It's just that
Mr. Adley, you do not understand it. You cannot learn anything that you think you already know. If you understood the top 2 graphs, you would understand what to do on the third graph. I don't know why you all are finding this so difficult.
You got to compare it to the h of n, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Mr.
no.
Buccio.
Got it. I got it. It'll go to -1.
Thank you very much.
H is 1. Yeah.
Now you got it. Now you understand it.
I understand it, man. Slowly but
Now
surely.
you understand it. Before you didn't understand it.
Yes, sir. I understand. Because I saw the one on the graph on this side.
And then And then where does 4 go?
4 would go up, but it would go up the 1. Positive 1.
I thought you understood it.
Wait, hold on. What I do wrong, man?
Yeah, compared to the h of n, just a multiplier, whatever h of n is.
Also, would that be 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. My bad. Sorry. Bad, man.
This goes up to 2.
So Dr.
And-
Carter, question.
Yes, go ahead.
We'd only have to do 4 points.
How many points would you like to do?
No, I just want to make sure. Because I see you only did 3 for the one before that.
And one before that, what I do?
You did 2.
No, I did 3 before that. 1, 2, 3 points.
I mean, I guess because that was okay, yeah. All right.
So Dr. Cartwright,
And so this last one, what's the equation for this last one? What's the equation for this last one?
X to 2 times h of n minus 2.
Yeah, minus 2.
X of 2 times h of n minus 2. So what's the total output? The total output now, just like the total input, is the sum of these 3. I'm gonna have to go to the next page. But this in your book. Oh, let's do it here. See in your book, this bottom one, the very bottom one on the left, that's your total input. You get that by adding these 3. Okay. So what's the total output? You get that by adding these 3 on the right. And so we see at n equals 0. At n equals 0, what do we see? We see 3 plus 0 plus 0. Answer 3. Okay. At 1, what do we have? We have -3
Give it a minute.
plus 2, -1. We have -1. And then at 2, we have 6 minus 2. That's 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So we have 5 here. See the 5? 5 goes over. And at 3, we have 0. 0 plus 4 minus 1. That's 3. And then at 4, we have 0, 0, 2. So total is 2. Okay. So we have the bottom is our output. And we calculated that using what? Only knowing the input and the impulse response. The input and the impulse response. We didn't derive the difference equation. So now, let me just finish that off. So this is 3. So now our output is the top graph plus the next graph plus the third graph. Okay. Or we could write that succinctly as that. So that's what the output is equal to. Okay. So I showed you graphically this is correct. We have a name for this. We have a name for that. This is called a convolution sum. Convolution sum. We write that as x of n is convolved with h of n. This is saying is convolved with and I'm going to state something here, but I'm not going to prove it. This is also equal to sum k equals 0 to 2 h of k x of n minus k. In other words, we interchange the roles of x and h. So this here would be h of n convolved with x of n. So the order doesn't matter. So we can always find the output by convolution. If I give you the impulse response, I give you the input, you can find the output by convolution. Okay. So let's get the equation for the output. Now that we know how the output's related to the input, we can actually get the equation. And this is on your test. So I hope you're paying attention. This is part 5 of your test. Let me focus that. So for that problem, we said that y of n equals the sum of impulse responses. That's what we're saying. X of k, h of n minus k, and that means x of 0, h of n, plus x of 1, h of n minus 1, plus x of 2, h of n. What happened? Okay. N minus 2. So x of 0 was 3. H of n was delta of n minus delta of n minus 1 plus 2 delta of n minus 2. Right. Plus x of 1. X of 1 was 2 times delayed h of n. So that's delta of n minus 1 minus delta of n minus 2 plus 2 delta of n minus 3. and plus 1 times x of 2 is 1, delayed by 2, delta of n minus 2, minus delta of n minus 3, plus 2, delta of n minus 4. So we can add that up. That's 3 delta n. And then we have negative 3 plus 2. That's negative 1. Negative 1 delta of n minus 1. And then we have 2 minus 2. That's 0 plus 1 plus delta of n minus 2. And then we have 4. 4 minus 1, 3, plus 3, delta n minus 3. And then we have 2, delta n minus 4. And give me a second here.
Dr. Cartwright, this delta of where you have the delta n minus 2.
Yes, I see that now. That's 6.
Yeah,
6 negative is 4, plus 1 is 5.
now you get 5.
Good for you. Okay. So this is now y of n. And that should be what we see graphically. And that should be what we see graphically. Okay. So that's if I asked you to write an equation for the output here from the graph, okay, this is what you would write. This is exactly what you would write. So you don't have to do this graphically. I did it graphically so that hopefully it made sense. Well, we could just do it algebraically. Once we know this equation, and by the way, these limits going to change. I mean, if your input only has 2, there are only 2 values on your input, then you're not going to have 3 statements. If you only have x of 0 and x of 3, okay, then your output won't be this equation. Your output would be x of 0, h of n, plus x of 3, h of what?
N minus 3.
N minus 3, yes. Yes. So each input impulse is going to have a corresponding output. Okay. But that's not this original example. Okay. Let's do an example.
So together, I can get a picture of it for you.
Hold on a sec.
Dr. Cartwright,
Yes.
what other subject you the teachers that convolution some before?
We could have done it in 320. There's a corresponding convolution in 320, but it's more complicated. It involves integral instead of summation. This is the first time we've done convolution. This is the first time we named it convolution. Okay. I may have mentioned a name convolution. I may have mentioned, let's go back. Let's go back to 320. Okay. Y of t equals inverse Laplace of h of s times x of s. Okay. And this product in the Laplace domain, you'd be tempted to write h of t times x of t, but that's not right. It's convolution. It's convolution. It's h of t convolved with x of t. So you see the same thing here today, but today is y of n equals h of n convolved with x of n, or the other way around. X of n involved with h of n.
Yeah, that's what I saw it before.
Yes. Yes. We did that in 320. And this would have been, y of t would have been negative infinity to infinity of h of t, x of t minus tau. Okay, dt. Well, we never worked this. This is called a convolutional integral. Okay. So I just mentioned the fact y of t is related to h of t and x of t by convolution. In 320. I didn't tell you what convolution was, because you see, in 320 it's a lot more complicated than it is in 460. Anyway, let's do another example. So let's do x of n equals 5 delta of n plus 6 plus 10 delta of n minus 4. There's x of n. This is our x of n. Our h of n is delta of n minus 1 plus delta of n minus 2. Find the equation. Find the equation for y of n. I'm going to give you a few minutes to try that. See what you come up with. See how much you understood what I was saying.
Hey, Dr. Carter, what is x of n equals 5 delta n plus what? Okay, 10 of delta.
Example 2. Before y'all do a lot of work, just tell me what y of n is before working it out. What's y of n equal to? what's the convolutional sum? Tell me what the convolutional sum is.
So would that be 5 delta of n?
No. Remember, what was it in the last example? The example we just did. See it here? It's y of n equals what? That term plus that term plus that term.
Dr. Cartwright,
Yes?
I get x of 0, h of n plus x of 4, h of n delayed by 4.
That's very good. Yeah. You, at least, are following this. Our input only has 2 impulses, so our output only have 2 responses. And that'd be x of 0 times h of n. And this is x of 4 times h of n minus 4. That's where we begin. That's our convolutional sum. That's our convolutional sum right there. Any questions about that? I hope you see our input. Pay attention, please.
Yes, sir.
Our input is x of 0 delta of n plus x of 4 delta of n minus 4. That's our input. And so our output will be the same thing. Our output will be the same thing, except that delta of n changed to h of n. Delta of n minus 4 changes to h of n minus 4. See how easy that is? And now let's finish it. Let's finish it now. All right. So take a snip because I'm going to the next page. So it's y of n equals x of 0, h of n plus x of 4, h of n minus 4. And x of 0 is 5 times h of n, 5 times h of n plus 10 times h of n minus 4. So it's 5 times delta of n minus 1 plus delta of n minus 2 plus 10 times delta of n minus 5 plus delta of n minus 6. So it's equal to 5 delta of n minus 1 plus 5 delta of n minus 2 plus 10 delta of n minus 5 plus 10 delta of n minus 6. That's y of n. Any questions about that? This is your final equation for y. Okay. Any questions about this?
Can we go over it again?
What part are you having trouble understanding?
Okay, now I understand how you got the convolution sum.
All right. So you understand this very first line then?
Yes,
All right.
then is the third line.
H of n already gave you.
Yes.
You know that. So if you know h of n is this. What's the h of n minus 4? It's the same thing as this, but it's delayed by 4. So n minus 1 delayed by 4 is n minus 5. That's that. And n minus 2 delayed by 4 is n minus 6. So this here is h of n, because that's what I gave you as a question. That's h of n, and this here is h of n minus 4. Do you have any questions still?
Yeah, I see it better now.
Okay. Anybody else?
I might have missed it, but the 10. Where you have h of n plus 10.
Where did I get 10 from?
Yeah, I messed up part.
Really? What's x of n?
Say x of n.
Yes, what is x of n? If you don't know what x of n is, you can't get the 10.
You say can't get it.
You cannot get it. If you don't know what x of n is, how you can get x of 4? How you get 10? 10 is x of 4. 10 is x of 4. If you don't know what x of n is, how you can get x of 4? So I'm asking you, what is x of 4? I mean, what is x of n?
6.
Where you get that from?
I just looking on this side.
You folks do not pay attention. That's the very first opening line of this question. See it there? X of n is 5 delta of n plus 10 delta of n minus 4.
Oh, okay. Well, Doctor, that's the next page, man. I was focusing on that one.
You weren't paying attention to this page. How can you pay attention to the second page when you're not paying attention to the first page? How does that make any sense?
All right.
All right. The last thing I want to do is tell you about a convolution command in Octave. A convolution command in Octave. So you don't actually have to work out what these are unless I ask you to. And I'm going to ask you to. Because I want you to understand what convolution is. I don't just want you to be able to use a computer without understanding what it's doing. So let's look at the convolution command. And let's do it for the first example, the 414 example. There we go. And let's go to the editor. And let's look at convolution at the top. Convolution command. There we go. There we go.
Dr. Cartwright,
Yes.
How come my octaves don't have all this stuff you have in green from line 1 to line 24?
I don't know what version of Octave you have.
The one you sent me through email?
I didn't send you Octave through email.
You said,
I sent you a link. I sent you a link to download Octave. I don't know what Octave you downloaded.
so does that play a factor or no? Because I did something and it come out fine. Some simple like unit step function.
What command did you what did you say edit? Did you put a .m command on that?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I don't have time to discuss that now. If it was working, then it doesn't matter. Okay. Can you all see my Octave screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is what we did first. The first example we did. The first thing I do is I define what X is, my input. Remember my input was 32100. Remember that? And then my H of N was 1, -1, 2. I've added 00 only because I wanted 5 entries on input and 5 entries on the impulse response. And then I simply say the output Y1 is X and H convoluted. That's what that command there says. And then Y2 is reverse. Y2 is the convolution of H and X. Up here is convolution of X and H. And when I run this, you see we get the same answer. And when we run this, and there it is. Both outputs are the same. And if you remember, this is the output that I got numerically. This is the output I got by working it out by hand. Whereas Octave gives you just the convolution command. And you can convolve H with X or X with H. You get the same output. Now let's do this new example. Okay, I don't want to screw up. Example. I'm going to put B there. B. So what was my input? What's my input for this new example? What's my X input? As a vector, what's my X?
That'll be 5, 0, 0.
This for the problem we just did.
Mr. Johnson, yes, it's for the problem that we just finished. Were you not paying attention?
Sorry.
That's at the fifth slot, you put 10.
Zero. 10. All right. And then what's my H? What's my H vector?
That should be 0, 1, and 1.
Um, I'm going to make these the same length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 0, 0. I'm going to save this as. I think I put a B there. Oh. B. Hopefully I'll get the output. First of all, the output is the same. Okay. Is that the output I expect?
That's what they're supposed to be the same.
They are supposed to be the same, but is that the output I expect?
5, 5, 5. Yeah, that right.
Yeah, it's right. Yes, of course it's right. Yes. That's a plot of the equation we derived. The very last thing we wrote on page 6. Any questions about that?
So we had to write this as a vector.
No, you didn't have to. Wait a minute. Yes, for the convolutional command, you have to write as a vector.
No, I'm talking about if you would have to write this output as a
Oh,
like event.
I could actually do that, yes.
So that'll be 5, 5, 0, 0, 10, 10.
Yes, just like you see on the screen. No, it would be 0, 5, 5,
Oh, yeah.
0, 0, 10, 10. Any other questions?
Can we have a next example?
What about the first 2 examples you don't understand? I'm not giving you a third example if you can't tell me what you don't understand about the first 2 examples.
Okay, where did that delay of -2 come from in that second example?
And what? Sorry.
Okay, see in the second example, somewhere down there, it was like delta n, delta of
Hold on a sec.
n.
Hold on a second. What are you talking about?
Okay, but you have it underlying. Okay, and
Yes.
that's the equation from h of n, delta
Yes.
n minus 1 plus delta n, delta of n minus 2. I'm trying to figure out where
Yes.
that -2 come from.
Because that's what I told you h of n was equal to. That's what I told you on the previous page. See it there?
Oh, okay. And then okay, now it makes sense.
Let me refresh your memory what we're trying to do with convolution. We're trying to get the output when you know the input and the impulse response. That's what we're trying to do with convolution. You know the input and the impulse response. So you're not finding the impulse response. I'm giving that to you. And that was true in both examples. Anybody else? Okay. I will. That's all I want to do for the day. I will now send your graded assignment